Hello everyone, I'm Ali. Today I'm gonna show you a few things around the world of P6 and how you can plan and do things in that software. It would be interesting. Today we're gonna talk about the painful method of creating WBSs whenever you create a project. I only say painful because it can feel a little bit very repetitive and manual at times, and not necessarily the best user interface to interact with whenever you're using P6 WBS activity space. So today I'm gonna show you two methods of a conventional method, which is statistically on average everyone uses that method, and this is how you usually create projects or you create WBSs in an existing project, and a method that I've adapted over the years, utilizing and implementing shortcuts as we go through it, and effectively also transforming the way you think about WBS creation so that you save as much time as possible in what can seem to be a manually heavy process, if that's the right thing to say. So use a simple layout of a project. We're gonna talk, so I laid here, usually you'd receive WBS layout in many ways and forms. I just used a simple table. So say you receive that contract document for that shows the context and the content of the project. So our project today is about having to build the WBSs for two residential buildings, two houses, so to speak. And in many houses, typically speaking, you have repeated WBSs and repeated ways of doing the building the project from a WBS perspective. That being said, we just put it here for simplicity in simple Excel tables, just so that we can, without flicking between too many pages, we just look at it here as we build it through. We'll use the slow way, and as we go through the first segment of doing it the slow way, or the normal way, so to speak, we'll just record that. Now the interesting thing is I'll record doing the exact same thing using my way, and we'll see how long that takes. So we'll just do an interesting study at the end of this small session of seeing this being brought up on a bigger scale. So say for example, and you're working in a nuclear or oil and gas kind of project, and these projects tend to have hundreds if not thousands of WBSs that require constant modification across the time and the life cycle, especially at the beginning and the early stages of the project. So definitely you need every single tool that aids you to make that less of a repeated manual and painful process, so to speak. So once we compare the methods, we'll just do an interesting study of extrapolating that and seeing, well, you saved that many over this many WBSs. Imagine how you'd save over thousands of WBSs over the life cycle of the project. So it's all about efficiency and making it something that is more appealing to deal with and work with. So let's start. Usually whenever you open a project, it opens up on the activity space, and the first thing you probably should be doing is consider adding the WBSs. At that stage you would have an understanding of the scope that is to be done in the project. So let's add that. Now I'll attempt recording. Let's have a read on the project that's at hand. So it seems that, well, it's a recommendation I have. Normally in many projects you will not see that, but effectively the WBS starts by putting the segment or the area, and this area represents the house or the house's name. So this one is called Riverview Cottage, and what I did as a small touch, because I notice in many P6 schedules it might get harder to read the more complex the schedule is. Whenever you're very deep in some sort of a WBS and it's layered over a certain topic, you might get lost in translation and not know if this says engineering, it's engineering for what. Well, in this case it's a simple case. You can refer it immediately to Riverview Cottage, but in many cases you'd have layers and layers of WBSs, and you have to go back and forth reading. So what I like to do, which is something I did here in Excel, I just added a -RC, which it's a short form for the product in question, which is the Riverview Cottage. So it's up to you. If the normal conventional method does not require you, or that mandates you just to be very defaulted by not adding any additional codes, it's fine. But let's use this method for now, because I'm going to show you interesting things as we go along. So apparently it shows us that there's few phases. So engineering phase, procurement phase, and what seems to be construction, and then within that a third layer or level of WBS, which shows sub activities or sub stages within that phase. So let's start by adding it. And before I start, I'll start decoding, and I think it's stopwatch. All right, so let's start. Method 1. Right, so normally whenever you don't know how to add, you just use the normal insertion method of a WBS, and you just type out the WBS's name. So in this case, we have the river view cottage, and that's it. So you added the main WBS, and then let's add the main phases under that. So it's engineering -RC. Let me just mute system sound so that we don't hear that every time once in a while. So one of the awkward things with P6, every time you press enter or add a WBS, it just rings, adds that ring sound. So we have procurement. So notice I'm adding them at the same level, and then we'll add within them. So to add at the same level, just click on the upper level WBS and then type it out. Construction and RC. Right, so now we need to add these. Okay, now we'll do construction and finish up with that site per RC. Right, so I believe now we finished the first segment, which is only one complete part for the first house, and that took us 5 minutes. So just for the sake of the video, I'm not gonna do the second segment, which is definitely a duplication of that. So let's assume doing this takes an average of 5 minutes for a WBS of this size, which contains, say, 5 here, 5 here, 9 here, approximately 20 with these, 23, 24 WBSs total. So in total, with the other house, you'd have shy of 50 WBSs to be created, and that would take you 50 minutes just to create 50 WBSs. So that being said, this is more or less the manual method, a minimum use of shortcuts, although I was really structured, and even for a standard approach, that was probably very quick without utilizing any single shortcut, copy pasting and moving things between the two pages. So let's put here method 1, 10 minutes for around 48 WBSs. So let's start doing method 2. Now let's close this. All right, now into the second project, where we will compare building WBSs with a more efficient approach, utilizing some of the shortcuts that are built in within P6, and might possibly be something of interest to show you comparisons of how quicker you can build a set of WBSs within the project. So we have this empty project to build the same exact WBS that we have here, and let's go into the WBS structure. And just few heads up before we start. So it's very important to be structured and organized in the way you go about it. It makes a difference. So you don't want to find yourself organizing WBSs or renumbering them again. So it's very important to have a structured way of adding WBSs. And in case you want to duplicate, so for example, the engineering and the procurement phase almost have, well, they have the same exact amount of WBSs. You might want to create the engineering set of WBSs, copy paste it, and then just do a bunch of renaming. Copy pasting. So because we have this Excel table here, it's important to know that you can just copy the cell and paste it right on top. So that definitely helps you. Even if you're like a fast typer, definitely copy pasting long texts is crucial. And once we're done with the first segment, we will copy the entire thing and paste it, because it's an exact replica for the second building, and just use the replace function to finalize the last bits of text. So we'll begin. All right, so let's start by adding the first WBS. That would be the building itself, and then within that, let's add the 3 main WBSs. So in a very organized fashion, we'll do the engineering WBS and add 5 underneath that one. So the counter here is automatically done by P6, and it lets you know how many you've added WBS. Now that we're done, we can copy this and paste it under this one. So notice how it or in a structural fashion, it pastes under it. So now we'll do the procurement one. So now we're up to construction. Now in construction there's 9. So let's start by naming the WBS correctly and add about 9. So all right, that's it. We're done. I'm gonna pause. Now this took a fraction of what it took the initial segment. Now if we double that, we will not even double that, because obviously I'm gonna copy the entire thing and paste it under this one, and I'm just gonna minimize everything. So we have the duplicate, which is gonna be the engineering OV. So that one, I'm obviously meant the building, and then we're gonna do a replace function, which is Control R. So you want to find everything that says -RC, and then you want to replace it with a -OV, and just instead of replacing all, because it will go through the entire thing, just replace manually until you are at the bottom of your program. Now the beauty with this, I like always putting an indication of what the WBS is talking about, because if you're using the abstract way, it can be confusing. So this took 215 minutes, and this took less than 10 seconds of just replacing everything. Let's say the method 2 took approximately 2.5 minutes for around 48 WBSs. So you can see this cuts the speed of your work, especially if you're organized about it and you plan it in your head before you go about it. It cuts the speed of work by a fraction. Like you can see that it's just 25% of the time it took us to initially do the first thing. And to be honest, even in the first method, I was speed typing through it, and although I was not absolutely doing any shortcuts, I was also being structured in doing it. So even the method 1 there was some structure to it in doing so. So moral of the story, be structured as you go with it. Know all of your shortcuts, copy pasting, the insert key. Obviously I did not discuss the arrows, but the arrows can definitely be nice. So when I copied the WBSs, I just moved these around. So control and one of the set of arrows allows you to move WBSs around. What else? Use the Control R to replace certain text. Especially if you're copying bulks of WBSs, it's very important to use the Control R instead of manually typing it out. F2 is nice, but you don't necessarily need it when you're building WBSs, which allows you to enter the context of the cell that you have highlighted with the orange bar. And these are like the main ones, and I think that should help you if you were to project this on projects of mass scale, like if you have hundreds if not thousands of WBSs. What normally takes you with a normal manual approach hours, like let's say something takes you 8 hours, if you project this on the comparison that we had here, what takes you 8 hours can take you up to 2 hours in comparison. So definitely efficiency and structure and planning what you want to do will help you speed up so many things. So hopefully that was beneficial to you guys. Just a little note I wanted to add. So I have on Udemy a course that can help you see the structure and the interfaces of P6. If you could use the voucher code I have in my description, it could be really helpful for you to explore the course, and feel free to comment and give me any feedback on it. Thank you.